wonderful night for Oscar, 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 who will win? Welcome everyone to Caleb Watches Movies, the channel where I, Caleb, randomly select from one of the many movies that I own and I watch and review them for you, except for days like today where I take a certain category of films and I rank the crap out of them. And this is the start of a nice annual tradition here on this channel where I go by decade of all of the Best Picture winners from the Academy Awards and I rank every single one. Last year I started this tradition by talking about all of the Best Picture winners of the 2010s. This year we're going back further in time and we're looking at all of the Best Picture winners from the 2000s. Now when I talk about the Best Picture winners of the 2000s, I mean the winners from the actual Academy Awards that were held in the 2000s. So even though The Hurt Locker was released technically in 2009, the Oscar ceremony that it won Best Picture in happened in 2010. That's why it was included in last year's ranking video. Therefore, this year, we're going to continue the same thing. And I know that's a big debate amongst Oscar scholars, like, what do you count? Do you count them winning the Best Picture in the year that the ceremony was held, or do you count them winning the Best Picture for the year that they were released? I don't care. I set the rules for my show. This is how it works, and I'm sticking to it. And I'm not here to talk about what should have been nominated or any of the other nominees each year. What I'm doing is I'm taking each Best Picture winner every single year and ranking all of those out of just that small little category. I could talk about how in 2008, The Dark Knight and The Wrestler should have been nominated for Best Picture, and that year's Best Picture winner, Slumdog Millionaire, shouldn't have even won because there were so many other great movies that came out that year. I could talk about that, but I'm not gonna. Even though The Dark Knight is the reason why the Academy the following year in 2009 increased their Best Picture category to 10 films instead of just narrow 5, but I digress. I had to go back and watch a couple of these because I haven't seen them in a very long time. Of course, watch them when they came out because they won Best Picture. You gotta watch the Best Picture to make sure that the Academy got it right. And I'm very happy to say that I had a lot of negative feelings towards a lot of films on this list, but after watching them I go, okay, yeah, these were pretty damn good. A couple of them not so much, but the majority of them I changed my tune on. But enough about me rambling on about it. I say we get into the list. This is the ranking of all of the Best Picture winners from the 2000s. Starting off at the bottom of this list has to be the most confusing winner of Best Picture, in my opinion, over the last couple of decades, and that's this musical called Chicago. I have my master's in theater. I'm a theater kid. I love musicals. I just don't get this one. It's a musical about people that commit murder to other people, and we're supposed to feel bad for them and sorry for them because they can sing and dance and shimmy and all that stuff. No, I don't, and I don't care about this one. The puppetry bit with Richard Gere and Renee Zellweger I think is fantastic, and Catherine Zeta-Jones kills it on screen. Abso-freaking-lutely kills it. She kills it so bad that everyone who's on screen with her in a musical number pale in comparison, even though they're trying so freaking hard to keep up with Zeta-Jones. Renee Zellweger, you can't. You can't sing, and you're an okay dancer. Just let Catherine go in front of you. This is her time. This should be her show. She is awesome. Everything else here is a wash. It's a bunch of shitty people singing and dancing, and we're supposed to love them. And I don't. Next up at number 9 is a Best Picture winner that really threw everyone for a loop because they were like, really? This one won? Okay, and that's the movie about racism, Crash. You take a whole bunch of kind of A-list and B-list stars and you put them into one movie where everything is interconnected and we're all talking about racism, and racism is just taking up our entire lives, right guys? Yeah, it's cool. Well done. It talked about a very sensitive topic for a lot of people. Yay. Beauty and art and Best Picture stuff. Good for you. Really the only reason I put it above Chicago is it doesn't have any annoying musical numbers. There are some nice dramatic performances in here. The moment with Michael Pena, I'm not going to spoil it here, but there is a wonderful, horrifying moment in here where he gets me. And I break down, but then of course it's a little rug pulling out from under you a bit where it's like, no, everything's fine. Just one of those movies that, yeah, it wins that year and then it's never talked about or heard of again. And then we just move on. Kind of like how I'm going to do right now. Number 8 light is from the Western director, the greatest Westerner of all time, Clint Eastwood, and that's $1 Million Baby. A story about a retired boxer training a young female boxer, making her a total badass, and it's actually way better than what I remember. I love Clint Eastwood's directing style. He is very obsessed with shadows and darkness and silhouette. Like Morgan Freeman comes on screen in the locker room and the light is shining behind him. He's completely covered in shadow. We can't really see his face. But the way he's delivering with his amazing voice and his position and just the beauty of the shadows, you get every emotion, and it's one of the best scenes out of the entire movie. Plus, it's one of the best boxing movies out there, where it discusses a whole bunch of things about boxing that I had never heard of before, going back to, like, the Rocky films. They never cover things like you should shift all of your weight to one end when you punch with this hand. Like, that makes no sense, but it makes all the sense in the world. By God, this film is brilliant. But then it turns into a movie about assisted suicide, which kind of comes out of nowhere, to be honest, so it's sad. It's a sad movie. At number 7 is when Russell Crowe was on a roll with the Academy. He traded in his sword and sandals for a little tweed jacket and bow tie. This is A Beautiful Mind. Ron Howard knows how to make a solid picture. He never makes anything that's like super substantial, in my opinion, or anything that's going to stand the test of time. Well, I guess Apollo 13. But that one aside, everything else is very solid. Everything is pretty damn good. Ron Howard is basically the missionary position when it comes to the Kama Sutra. Is it pretty standard? Does it get boring after a while? Yeah, sure, but gets the job done. And this is one of those get the job done type movies, and it wins Best Picture. Yeah, sure. Why not? Russell Crowe shows that he has a range and he can actually perform as opposed to just throwing in his muscles and fighting everybody. No, he's an actual great performer. And Jennifer Connelly is right up there with him. Their chemistry on screen is great here. But like I said, this is just one of those standard Best Picture winners that, yeah, it's going to win that year, but it's also one of those movies that you're probably not going to think about in decades to come. At number 6 is starring a man whose name that we don't use anymore when it comes to the Academy or just movies in general. Even though I'm not going to say it. I'm going to do my best not to say his name, but it rhymes with Devin Lacey. But it's also starring Annette Bening too, and this is American Beauty. This is one of those artsy films that makes you think about your life and the life of a person and just how beautiful it can be in your little mundane existence. And my God, the Academy loved it during this decade. Bunch of mundane people living out their mundane lives. Oh, we have some nudity and some rosebuds and some floating plastic bags. And that makes life beautiful. It is a tremendous film, though. It's one of my favorite Best Picture winners. I'm shocked that I actually put it this low on this list, but I think the whole thing that happened with Devin Lacey just brings this movie down a couple of tads, just because you watch it and you go, oh, you turned out to be a son of a bitch. God damn it. At number 5 was definitely one of the movies that shocked me. I watched it once back in 2008 because it was nominated for Best Picture. It won Best Picture. And I was like, okay, what's the movie that beat out The Wrestler, beat out The Dark Knight, beat out Benjamin Button, and beat out Frost Nixon? It was this movie? Oh, that's BS, and that's Slumdog Millionaire. But I am happy to say, after watching it for the second time, and after recently getting into Indian cinema, I'm actually digging this a lot more. It's a movie about destiny, about how everything in your life leads you to a certain point. There's going to be a lot of heartache. There's going to be a lot of trials and tribulations. You're going to literally walk through shit. That's right. Literally walk through peanut butter shit. But in the end, once everything leads you to the love of your life, that makes everything worth it. No mud, no lotus, right? You gotta go through the shit to get to the beautiful flower. So watching it, I'm like, son of a bitch, this is actually pretty damn good. So thank you, Slumdog Millionaire, you're pretty good. I still think there are other movies that came out that year that were better and should have won, but because this one won, it's on this list, and it's better than the previous movies I talked about. At number 4 is one of the creepiest, quietest, and simplest movies I have ever seen, and that is No Country for Old Men. Javier Bardem creates one of the most iconic villains and evil people in all of cinema history with Sugar. How he just walks around with his monotone voice, very calm voice, and will just hypnotize you into just staying ever so still as he holds up this air pistol thing, which is a brilliant way to kill someone. It's untraceable, but yet it works. Like, why haven't we seen this before? Tommy Lee Jones as an old sheriff, and that whole last monologue that he has at the end of this movie about the dream that he had and just walking out to pasture. It's one of those Coen brothers' beautiful moments in their whole filmography. And then Josh Brolin kind of going on his little adventure with the briefcases of money. This is one of those exciting thrillers that is so quiet and so calm, but yet is so suspenseful, and you keep watching and you keep wanting to know where this is going to go and where it's going to end. This is one of the Coen brothers' best films. At number 3 is a movie that I have watched on repeat on a daily basis. I've watched it 3 times a day. That's how great it is. Introducing Joaquin Phoenix to my filmography and to my history of movies, and that is a little badass sword and sandal adventure, Gladiator. Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus is one of the best villains of all time. He is so slimy. He's so disgusting. He's so freaking great. And Russell Crowe as Maximus, just put him on the map, in my opinion. He just goes around and fights around the world and fights everyone that comes up to him. Hell, even my senior cat, my oldest cat, is named after Maximus from this movie. I mean, technically his name was already Max when we adopted him from the shelter, but whenever I think of Max, that I call his name, I think of Maximus from this movie and his hand going across the grains about how he just wants to see his family, even though that's totally not what would have happened back in Roman times. Who cares? We don't care. This movie's just badass. It's so much fun. We got people fighting. This is like old school WWE wrestling. This is a theatrical performance back in the old Roman times that I talk about with my theater students. Connie Nielsen, Jimon Hunsao, all of them are just great. I love this movie so much. One of those ones that I can just put on in the background and watch it on repeat. It's so freaking good. Unfortunately, it's not better than this Martin Scorsese film where he finally won his Best Director Academy Award, and it's a masterclass. This movie is masterful. It's about a whole bunch of cops who are not cops, who are gangsters, who could be cops, or who are not cops, maybe they're undercover cops, who knows? But it's all from Boston. It's The Departed. Leo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Jack Nicholson, Alec Baldwin, Mark Wahlberg. Hey guys, you want to talk about being a cop? Hey, you want to take down these drug lords, guys? Come on, let's talk about science. This movie has so much energy behind it, and I love the story of people going undercover, seeing Matt Damon in a villainous role. It was something that I hadn't really seen a lot back in 2006, so to see him be the villain of the story, it was like, oh, okay, you're on that side of the fence. Usually you're the hero of the story, so okay. There are moments in this movie where my jaw literally drops to the ground because I was not expecting it to go there. Is it based on another movie? Yes, of course. I mean, it's not the most original story out there. I get that, but it doesn't mean that this movie is not frickin' amazing, because it is. This one definitely deserved to win Best Picture that year. It's my favorite movie of the year, 2006. It's gotta be. And it gave everyone who went to the theater to watch this thing the confidence to do a Boston accent in their everyday life. All of these movies, though, pale in comparison to what I put at number 1 Best Picture of all the Best Pictures in the 2000s, and that is The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. I'm a nerd boy. You had to figure that this was going to be at the top of my list. There was no other film that was going to top it. It's the culmination of a 3-5-year journey that the audience took, and that all of these actors and creators and set designers, directors, sound mixers, and artisans, all of these people went on this journey to create this beautiful, wonderful world of Middle-earth, and it's affected pop culture ever since the first film came out in 2000. The movie was nominated for 11 Academy Awards, and it won every single award that it was nominated for. 11 Academy Awards. That ties the record for the most one with Ben-Hur and Titanic, but both of those were nominated for other ones that they lost. This is the most perfect, winnable movie out of the entire decade. How could it not be at number 1? And I've already talked about this film and all the other films in the Lord of the Rings Middle-earth franchise. I don't need to go on anymore other than saying, like, this is just a perfect ending to a perfect story. And that is my list and ranking of all of the Best Picture winners from the 2000s. What did you think of my list? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What is your ranking of all of these movies? Whatever you thought, comment below. Let me know what you thought about it. And as always, if you like what you see here, if you like my take on movies, then hit the subscribe subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell. See you the next time I'm releasing my next movie review. So guys, I will see you next time on the channel. Have fun watching the Oscars this weekend. In the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.